Hey guys, so I'm gonna try and film a little video today about attaching the treasures, the crystal treasures, to my mirabilia. A commenter, Hani, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, asked for this 3 months ago when I said I would do it, and I'm sorry it's taken me so long to put the beads on this project, but hopefully this is still gonna be helpful to you. So I've put on all the main beads and I've put on one crystal treasure, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more, and then like one big one to put on. So I'm going to try to get my camcorder set up in a way that will let me have my hands free. Why don't I have a little tripod? I should just buy a little tripod. I only have this tiny thing, and I mean, we'll see if that works. Alright guys, so we are going to see if this is something that's going to work as far as a setup goes. So this is the Wand of August Peridot Fairy. This is the treasure that I've already attached. It's sitting horizontally, so the holes on the treasure are kind of on the left side and the right side. And I'm going to attach several more. So I put all my beads on this project with one strand of DMC. This is 712, and it pretty much perfectly matches my fabric, which is like an off-white. And the way I've been kind of starting my threads for beading in general, but also for these treasures, this is where I'm going to put the next one here, right in her hand. And you can see I've stitched an X, a cross stitch, with this single strand of DMC 712. And I've done that so that I can anchor this floss before I attach the bead. I'm a little wary of just like running the needle under the stitches at the back because it's not really anchored in any way, and I don't like knotting. I don't know what it is. I'm just not very good at it. So what I'm doing in this case is just making a tiny X, and that's going to be immediately covered up by the treasure. So that's a nice way to anchor your treasures. If you want to do this for regular beading, what I've been doing is you can see that all of my beads are attached diagonally. They're not sitting straight up and down. That's because I've just been attaching them with a half cross stitch as opposed to a full cross stitch. I have a video on that process, and I will link that on the screen. But so what you can do if you want to use this anchoring method is you can stitch a half cross stitch on your fabric on the spot where the bead is going to go, and then just stitch another half cross stitch directly on top of it with the bead on your floss. So you can anchor that first half cross stitch without having the bead on your needle, and then attach the bead with like the anchored floss. I hope that makes sense. That's just the way that I do it. Like I said, I don't really do any knotting at all on my projects, and I don't like the idea of having that loose end on the back of the work just tucked underneath some stitches, because it's pretty unlikely, but it is still possible that you could just like yank that end out. So, okay, back to what we're talking about. So you can see I've anchored my DMC here with just a little cross stitch. So this is fully anchored. You can see I'm pulling on it. It's not coming out. I have my beading needle on the end, and I am going to pick up my treasure. So I'll use this opportunity to show you the treasures I'm using. Please excuse all the cat hair on this, but you know it is a sticky, it's a tacky bob, so it is sticky and it's covered in cat hair. So these are the treasures I'm going to be putting on the wand, and then there's this big heart-shaped one that's going to go up in like her hair. So the next one I'm going to be attaching is one of these pink ones, so I'm going to get that one on my needle. Alright, so I've threaded the treasure onto my needle, and I've already come up through the fabric at the point at which I want to start my stitch, so you get a space of 4 cross stitches to anchor this treasure in the pattern. So I'm just going to do my cross stitch as normal and go up diagonally. Okay, so now that I've done that, you can see I have my treasure on here, just with a half cross stitch, and I've brought my needle up just at the point you would normally to complete your cross stitch. And now, because I don't like the way it looks sitting diagonally like that, I'm going to use a full cross stitch to anchor this bead. So I'm going to take the needle back through the treasure, and then I'm going to finish off my cross stitch as normal. So just finish making your X. And then you have this treasure mounted horizontally, I suppose, or straight up and down. It's not angled in any way. And that's the way I wanted to do mine, just because I didn't really like the look of it being kind of diagonal. I liked the idea of it. I feel like it looks more finished when they're this way. So I have a few more treasures to put on this section, and then I will show you the finished product. Alright guys, I'm back and I changed my mind. So I had this treasure hanging not on a diagonal, and I put a couple more in, and I realized it looked kind of funny because the treasures were straight up and down, but the wand was diagonal. So I just took them off and reattached them diagonally. So now they look like they're part of the wand, and it's much, much easier. So I have one more to put at the end here. All I have to do is attach it using a half stitch, just a half stitch that's not typically what I would stitch if I were making a cross stitch. So I stitch this way. I do this leg first and then this leg, but because you're beading, you can kind of do whatever you want. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick up my last treasure, and I'm going to count 2 diagonal spaces across. And we're going to pull through. And that's it. So that is way easier, and it made much more sense as far as this specific pattern goes, just because it's a wand basically. So normally I would attach these treasures the way that I showed you originally, but in this case I am doing it this way. Alright, so the last treasure that's going on this mirabilia is this big heart crystal, and it's going right in this open space in her hair here. So if you can see, I've already secured my thread with a tiny little X, just in that cotton that's the same color as my fabric. I still have my needle at the back of my fabric here. I'm just holding it with my left hand because I just want to show you, whoops, oh my god. So I just want to show you this crystal for a second. So it is big. It is as big as this spot that it's going in. And it does have a right side and a wrong side. So there's this side, which is the really pretty reflective green side, and then the back side doesn't really have that. So this is your front side. And hopefully you can see there's just one tiny little hole in this crystal at the very top. There, you can see a little bit of a stitch behind it. So that's the hole that we're going to use to anchor this treasure. So because the hole is at the top of the treasure and this treasure is going to fill up this whole space, I'm going to bring my needle up at the very top of this space. So I've brought my needle up right at the top of this space that we have. I am going to thread this treasure onto the needle, and we'll just see how it sits. So you can see, hopefully, before I've even attached it, that it fills up that whole entire space. So what I'm going to do now that I have it threaded is I'm just going to go back into the fabric where I originally put my needle through. And that is going to attach that treasure. So because it only has a hole at the very top, it is kind of going to flap around here. I would love to be able to secure it at the bottom too, but that's not how the treasure's made. So what I am going to do is I'm going to come through the fabric again and just go once more through that hole. Alright guys, so now that the treasures are attached and I can change my camera setup a little bit, I can actually show you a better view of what they look like. So this is the treasure that I attached using a full cross stitch, meaning I went through the bead twice, once on both legs of the stitch, and that's the way that you can get it to sit straight. I have a whole video on that, as I mentioned. I will link that somewhere in the screen. And these treasures I attached in a different way. I attached them that first way first, and then I realized they looked a little funny because the wand itself is on a diagonal, so having the treasures sit straight up and down just makes them look a little funny. So I attached these with just a half cross stitch going this way. So I brought my needle up in the bottom right hand corner, threaded the treasure on, and then finished the stitch in the top left hand corner. And that's how you can make those look like they're a part of that wand. And then this big crystal that we attached, this big heart, there's really only one way to put this one on just because there's only one hole at the top. So we just anchored that, made sure it filled up the whole space that was available to it. It's pretty big though, so you shouldn't have a problem with that. I went through the bead twice just to be safe. And this is a place where you might want to consider using invisible thread. So you can see I use that cream colored thread and you can see the little bit of it right at the top there. Or even black DMC would probably look less obvious than this. Or you could, I guess, match it to the crystal and use like a green color. This doesn't bother me too much though, truthfully. But it's something that you might want to think about because you are going to be seeing that little bit of thread. So that is my video on how I attached the crystal treasures to my Mirabilia. I hope it was helpful. I really need to find a better way to film stuff like this. And if you're interested in this project, now that the treasures are on, I just have to initial it and put a date on it, and this is officially a finish. So I will be doing a finish video on this Mirabilia where you can see all the beautiful beads a little bit more close up. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.